Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Greetings, fellow scoundrels, and welcome to Great Shot Kid on the Nerd Party Network, the show that analyzes the work of Star Wars creators both within and without the Star Wars galaxy. I'm your host, John Mills, and with me as always is my friend, Mike Schindler. Mike, how are you today?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Oh, pretty good, thanks. And we postponed the topic of this week's episode. Last week we took a look at the work of Carrie Fisher. And so this week we are going to be taking a look at one of the works of Rian Johnson, who is going to be directing a small film here in 2017, which I believe that they're editing right now, a movie called Star Wars Episode VIII, which will be gracing screens in the coming year.
Yeah. I imagine there will be more to the title than that, but as of right now, it's just Star Wars Episode VIII.
Yeah, probably we're going to get something. I'm gonna say probably somewhere around April-ish. We're going to get the title drop.
Yeah, like right before Guardians of the Galaxy comes out.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
something like that. And I actually after I watched Rogue One, I was at a bar, surprise, and it was attached to the movie theater, and there was another gentleman next to me who had his Chewbacca hoodie on. So of course our conversation as I'm wearing my Boba Fett hoodie turns to Star Wars, and I guarantee you this is not true, especially given Disney's marketing machine, but he was insisting that he had read that they were only going to release one trailer for Episode VIII and nothing else. And I said, that's a very intriguing theory. That's fascinating, but I don't think that's going to be true.
That's not accurate. No, I can't see that happening.
No big budget movie is going to do that. They have way too much riding on it. They want people to be breathing Star Wars by the time that gets released. But something that Rian Johnson worked on was Breaking Bad. And in specific, we are going to be doing a commentary on this episode for the very well-regarded and awarded episode Ozymandias, which is the climax of the series, really. It's the third to last episode. So if you haven't watched Breaking Bad, I would recommend watching the 5 seasons before watching this because it's going to lose some of its impact. Breaking Bad is available, of course, on Netflix.
Don't just jump in here. That would be an extremely bad idea. If you don't want to commit to Breaking Bad, shame on you. But if you don't want to commit to Breaking Bad and you want to get an idea of Rian Johnson's work on Breaking Bad, I would recommend watching the first episode that he directed, which is kind of a standalone thing called Fly.
Yes.
And it is a very good episode in and of itself. It is not like the big finale of the series. It's kind of just like a standalone character. It's a bottle show. It really is. I mean, the reason why they did it is because they just built a very expensive set, and they're like, let's do an entire episode on this set. And it's extremely well done. Highly recommended. Not nearly as good as this episode, but it won't ruin the entire series for you.
Right. You're for sure. Fly is a good entry point, though, if you want to just get a quick for how the characters relate to each other and who they are. I agree with you. It's a really good episode to jump in on. Yeah. But this one is Ozymandias. This is from season 5. This is the climax of the series, and it's available on Netflix. So Mike and I are going to queue up our Netflix right now, and we're going to give you a countdown. 3, 2, 1, go. And when we say go, that means we've hit play. So 3, 2, 1, go.
And there is a boiling beaker?
Beaker, yes. Okay. Which, defines so much about Walter White and his life, especially his life as a meth cook, the best meth cook ever. And we instantly know, especially because we've been with the show for a long time up to this point that this is a flashback because he has hair and a mustache, which by the end of the show, he is bald with a goatee. So we know that we're getting a flashback giving us sort of a quick intro back into the relationship between Walter and Jesse.
And it works really well as sort of like a bookend, because here we are at essentially the end of the series, and we're seeing something which would have happened, probably, I think, in episode 1, or very close to it. And, it's like same location, and, the way that they transition from, the past to the present is really interesting, and, kind of like speaks to how well thought out this show is on the whole. This is kind of an amazing series. Everyone who involved with it was bringing their A game, and I would include Rian Johnson in that category. I don't know, Looper is fine and Brick is fine, but like when they
just to interject really quick, Brick is one of my friends, one of his favorite movies of all time. So,
really, have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
I will.
Well, we'll watch it for our sequel trilogy triple feature series, but
for sure.
But yeah, when they announced Rian Johnson, because J.J. Abrams was announced as the director of episode 7, and I think a lot of people were like, oh, how many lens flares is he going to put in this one? Whereas I was like, oh my God, that's the most amazing thing ever. And then when they announced that Rian Johnson was directing episode 8, there were a lot of people in film Twitter or whatever who were like, what? Oh my God, this is gonna be the best thing ever. Because people are like really fond of Looper and other things. And my reaction was kind of like, well, he's made some good movies, whatever. But that was before I had seen Breaking Bad, And then when I saw Breaking Bad, he only directed 3 episodes, but, oh my God, just look at this thing.
Well, think of I think this is a good one, especially from the perspective of in the context of episode 8. He's the pressure to direct this episode of Breaking Bad, which when you think about it, people have been waiting so long. The first time it airs, it's all building to this. This is what it's all coming to, and to take that on his shoulders and, essentially deliver as well as he does is just, I think it speaks well of him that he's going to be put in a high pressure situation and he's not going to buckle. He's going to say, I know what's expected of me. I know what I need to do. And not only am I going to deliver, I'm going to give you something you don't quite expect. Because I can tell you, as a fan, as somebody who was with the show while it's airing, to come in with a flashback was unexpected. Was, oh, okay, what are you doing here? And I like that. I like that it took you out of it and reminded you of how far you've come up to this point. So I hope that there's some element of that he's able to work into episode 8. Because if you think about it, it's probably going to function the way Empire does, of being, that there's a lot of dramatic weight to it, and then episode 9 is going to have to resolve everything. So here you have something that is really an emotional core episode of Breaking Bad, and immediately we're thrown in, and the characters are made, we're reminded of them again. Like we're not allowed to be complacent coming into it. It doesn't give us what we're looking for, which is the big payoff immediately.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I guess thinking about it in a lot of ways, this episode really sort of is like the Empire of Breaking Bad. In
a large way, yeah.
It's like it's not the big finale, right? But it is like where everything hits the fan, everything is thrown into absolute chaos. Everything that we've been anticipating and waiting for the past 5 seasons finally happens. And really the last 2 episodes are sort of like a weird resolution to, like, almost like a postscript, to that. It's like it's where everything is resolved and the story finally does end. But like whenever you think about the show and you think about like what you're waiting for in watching it, it all happens in this episode, and it ends on a very dark note. This is the darkest chapter in Breaking Bad, which is saying a lot.
It's saying so much because you have this slightly comic flashback to start things, and everything fades. Then you have the titles, and you hear gunfire while the screen is dark, and it comes back in. Everything fades back in, and here's Hank, the guy who started out as the a-hole brother-in-law, who you come to understand is the actual hero, the only hero of the characters that you really get. And he's been shot in the leg, and he's desperately trying to stay alive, to win. Like, he's not just laying down. He's going for a gun. Like, the odds are so far against him. And here are these people. You see in the opening part, Walter White, family man, coming up with a cover story for why he can't come home. And in this, you look at the people he's with now. His family member is the one who's wounded and at the mercy of these people that he's now associated with. These reprehensible people that are just, it's so, it's such a juxtaposition. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really well done. I mean, this series is considered to be one of the best television series ever made. That's an established fact. And this episode by far is considered to be, I think, the best episode of the entire show. And, as an extension of that, it's not at all a stretch to say that this is considered to be one of the single best hours in television history.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's not an exaggeration. And
no, it's not.
I mean, it's really, really, really well done. The script won the Emmy for best dramatic writing that year, and the series won best drama. And this episode is truly amazing. I mean, so here we have. I mean, it's interesting, like just the people who they get to star in this show, the caliber of talent. I mean, this guy here is Michael Bowen, who it took me a while to make the connection, like because he looks so different than he does in a lot of the things that I'm familiar with him with. But he's in a lot of Tarantino movies and a lot of Paul Thomas Anderson movies. Well, one Paul Thomas Anderson movie, but he's the dad of the quiz kid in Magnolia.
That's oh my gosh, oh my gosh, you're right.
And he's the nurse in the hospital at the beginning of Kill Bill. And he's the I don't know who he's with. Is it ATF? One of the guys, or is he FBI? One of the guys working with Michael Keaton in Jackie Brown.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And
then right behind him, his nephew is played by Jesse Plemons, who it's so crazy to see him in this. Like when I was watching this show, I was simultaneously watching Friday Night Lights, and he's like the nerdy kid on Friday Night Lights. And here he is, as like this...
A stone-cold sociopath?
Yes, yeah.
Who lacks any humanity or moral center at all, in any real sense of the words?
That's true, but at the same time, he has like that same awkward quality that he has on Friday Night Lights, where he's like, oh, hi, I don't mean to, be a bother or anything, but I was just kind of thinking that it would be nice to do this extremely terrible thing, it's
just right here. Okay, first off, they dropped the F-bomb, which I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure was bleeped when it aired live.
Oh, could have been, yeah.
But to speak to the, again, Johnson coming in and directing something, we expect this sort of emotional weight from episode 8. Like, we all knew that episode 7 was going to be more fun-focused. It was going to be more evocative of the original. We all know that the middle one has this darkness. And you look at this this exchange with Hank and with Walt, where Walt is not willing to accept how and Hank, man, what an ending for him. But this scene right here, right, where Walt falls, the way it expresses so simply, yes, this is Cranston's performance, but also when he falls and we have the glare of the sun and this overwhelming everything about it. And just the way that it's handled, the camera just the camera then cuts to the nephew, who seems to have an emotional reaction, and which doesn't even seem to make sense. Like it's such a heavy scene, and it's handled so perfectly that just blows me. It blows my mind. It does.
Yeah, I did not watch this show when it was on the air. I watched it a little while later as part of a thing that I've been doing, where I've been trying to basically go through and watch shows that are on the Writers Guild's list of the top 100 written shows of all time or whatever. And because of that, being on Twitter, obviously everyone on social media was talking about Breaking Bad. I remember when this episode aired, because I remember being on Twitter and seeing all of the reactions completely devoid of any context. But it was crazy just seeing everyone say the same things, and it was, most of it was just this emotional response to what was going on, where it's just screw you, Walter. Oh my God, you're terrible. I hate you. I hate you so much. Just all that stuff. And this shot, of Walter, on the ground or whatever. It's pretty iconic. And for the longest time, in my mind, I had it as the final shot of the series, just because of Rian Johnson actually tweeting. Do you remember, or are you aware that this show was remade for Spanish television?
I did not know that. No. Oh, wait, no, the whole show. Yeah, yes. I remember that story.
It's called I don't know how to pronounce it exactly in Spanish, but it's called metastasis.
Yeah.
And
metastasis.
Metastasis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because when cancer spreads, it metastasizes.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I trip over that word too.
Yeah. So this show, I guess they compressed it into, far fewer episodes, but 34 episodes, but they told the entire story. And you look at individual frames from it, which, he was pulling out, and as he was watching it, I guess just because he thought it was the most amazing thing ever. It's almost a shot for shot remake of the original show, just in Spanish, It's apparently it's become sort of a cult thing. It's kind of this crazy alternate reality Breaking Bad or whatever. And he had that picture up, when he was doing his sort of his watch through of it. He posted that picture on Twitter, but from the Spanish version of the show. And I just always assumed, because of the way that he was doing it, that was the scene where Walter White died,
Yeah, though, but that's also the brave thing about the way everything is structured with this episode, with this show in general, is that the death of Walter White is like the death of Michael Corleone in Godfather Part 2. Spoilers. He doesn't actually die, but his spirit is gone.
Yeah.
The person that the last vestige of goodness or anything worthwhile about him is gone. And it's about to happen while we're watching it right here, because this is the moment where people would have I assiduously stayed off of social media at all costs when this show was on. I would go dark for the whole day. And coming up right here, where Walt makes this decision, is just this is the moment where Walt is truly dead to me.
This is definitely I mean, this is definitely part of it, where he says to like you need to kill Pinkman or whatever, but the thing that he does right after this coming up, where
Yes. Yeah.
he stops and he
Yes.
reveals, he confesses, I guess you could say, to Pinkman about the death of Jessica Jones. That is just like completely cold-hearted, like
it is. Well, no, but the thing is, it echoes. It's a lot like the ending of the show The Shield, which also had a terrific ending.
I haven't seen that one.
There's one season that's sort of like, where like you know why they continued to, why they felt the need to come back and give it another season afterward. But the moment here where Walt, says it to Jesse, where he is about, where he tells Jesse what he did, what he stood by and watched. I mean, I still have this emotional reaction to it that is just like, it just boils over because, I can't even put it into words, just how ridiculously cruel it is. How we've been lying to ourselves through this whole show, and the Shield does the same thing. We're lying to ourselves through the whole show that, well, at least Walt's motivations, it's to help his family. It's to help. This moment right here puts the lie to that whole thing. You can't hold on anymore to any idea that there's anything, even sort of like a base noble motivation that got him into it. Walt White has always been a bad person from the beginning, and this is the evidence of it. And even the choice right here, and I know there are a lot of people that work on the show, but the way his jacket pops in those shots, with everything that's going around, there's a lot of dark colors, there's a lot of oranges, but his jacket sets him out. Like, it visually immediately throws into relief that he's the move. Oh, geez. Yeah, and I watched her die. I'm sorry, man. That's just... Yeah. Man.
I mean, like what you're talking about, with the costume design and everything, obviously there are a lot of people who work on it, and obviously, like, Vince Gilligan is, the master, hand in this whole thing. He's the one who's putting everything together. But, that doesn't change the fact that, Rian Johnson is the guy out here who actually needs to do it. And I mean, I really have to believe, that the way that this show is sort of created is similar to the way that, Battlestar Galactica was created, which, Ron Moore and everyone else has been very open about on their commentaries, where, basically once the director got on the set, they were given, the go-ahead to change things as they saw fit, on as on the day. You know what I mean? Like, if you needed to change the line, if you came up with something new and added to the scene, then you would do that. And I've got to think that most of the visual, cues and stuff like that we see are the work of the directors, the filmmakers, and they've got top-notch directors working on it. Johnson being one, Michelle McLaren, being another. She was, I think, one of their lead directors and everything, and they're all really, really good. And you talk about like cinematic television, and people would refer to that going all the way back to things like Twin Peaks and The X-Files, and now it's become like very much a thing with The Sopranos and Battlestar Galactica and everything. And I think that, everyone is in agreement that Breaking Bad is one of the most quote-unquote cinematic television shows in history. Right?
Yeah, absolutely, hands down. And, another choice that probably I wouldn't have even thought of at the time, but I'm noticing right now that I think is also very telling, very cool, is the credits didn't appear until after he gets in the car.
Yeah, it's the second commercial break, the second act.
Right, but they didn't allow this to distract you from the drama that was going on
right
in front. They like that in and of itself, I think, is a great choice because it there's nothing to take you out of the moment. You're able, I think that the fact that you're able to completely go into it and there's no constant visual tick to remind you this isn't real allows you to really invest yourself in the moments that came, beforehand.
Yeah. The first credit on screen in this episode comes 18 minutes into the episode. That's
right,
nearly halfway through the episode, which is pretty crazy. But it's definitely a good choice, because now we are sort of relaxing that tension from that first scene has dissipated a bit. It's weird because this episode had been built up so much. Everyone was talking about it. As soon as it aired, people were like, "That's the best episode of the show," by far.
Yep.
And that had always been there, sort of for me as I was watching it. I always knew I gotta watch out for Ozymandias and everything. And then when it was about to, when I was getting there in my watch through, a lot of these I would watch if I was on the train or whatever, on the go, kind of, out of the corner of my eye, just because I don't have time to sit down and watch an entire, television show. And I always knew from the very beginning that when I got to this episode, I was going to save it and wait till I could go home and watch, just the last 3 episodes, all the way through, under ideal circumstances and everything. And I fully agree that this thing is amazing, but I think it had been built up so much in my mind. I was expecting something on the same level as, Citizen Kane or something like that. And when it was quote unquote just this, I was kind of that's it, that's what I was waiting for this whole time. Okay.
I consider that too bad because I have a cousin who didn't watch it, and I learned the lesson repeatedly through time where I try to underplay any positive or negative reaction that I have when I'm discussing something with somebody that hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
And I think that Breaking Bad was one of those things where what a lesson, because he came out of it and he has sort of even though he wouldn't admit it, sort of an immediately contrarian impulse. So it had been built up so much, including by me, that by the time he watched the series, his reaction was, yeah, it was good. Mm-hmm. And your natural reaction as somebody who enjoyed it is, what's wrong with you? What are you talking? Yeah. Why don't you love this so much? And it's, I definitely think that stuff completely, it plays into things. But just the title of the show, which they drew attention to when they were building up to it, because during, season 5 and building up to the end, they had Walt's voice saying, "Behold my works, ye mighty, and tremble," which is from the poem Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. And it's so telling, just the title of it, because Walt wanted so bad to be the king, to be, the god emperor of everything. And, and then in a sense, titling it Ozymandias and then thinking of that line, "Behold my works, ye mighty, and tremble." It's not look at what he's built, it's look at what he's destroyed. Everything that he has laid waste to through this series. And that is what I think makes everything about this episode work so well, is it doesn't flinch. It doesn't give you an out to forgive him in any way. When he's pushing that barrel through the desert, you want him to die. You want him to suffer and starve and lose all of the water in his body and be done with it. And it's just, and now you have Skyler. Skyler as a character was unfairly maligned. It always drove me nuts through the series, Lifetime, because people wanted to identify with or like the main character, and Skyler was always a roadblock to him. She was always questioning him. She was always trying to derail him. She was always trying to get away. And there was a very uncomfortable backlash to that, where people would like say nasty things about the character. And like, I never understood it. And then you even see her here. She's the one that always has to bear the weight of the choices Walt made. Walt, until this moment, has never accepted responsibility for anything that has happened. And even now, you know, by selling out Jesse and then telling the horrible truth to him, Walt is still finding a way to shift anger and blame off of himself. And Skylar is left to deal with the ashes of everything. It's so poignant, the role that her character plays.
Yeah, I guess I never, since I didn't watch it live and I really did watch it by myself, kind of in isolation. Like, aside from, those reactions that I would see online, which were completely out of context, I had no real sort of idea of what people thought of this series in terms of the nitty gritty, I mean, I haven't even really discussed much of the series on the whole with anyone. I watched it by myself, all that stuff. So I was completely immune to that kind of thing. And like hearing people's reactions to like characters and stuff like that, and which characters they like and which characters they don't and all that stuff, I kind of like, I don't even like relate to it in a way, because like when I'm watching, I think like a lot of modern television, whether it's this or Mad Men or The Sopranos or whatever, like I guess I don't ever really feel like, oh, I like this guy, I can relate to this guy or anything like that. I think that television has really sort of, it's weird, like it's really taken the place of like the art film. And like I sit there watching something like Mad Men, and I'm like, how does this not only end up on TV, but have like such an extremely large audience? Because this is some rather abstract stuff which is going on, and like I've seen movies that are kind of like structured like this, and people don't respond to them. I mean, yes, there are, people who are like, this is a masterpiece, but for the most part, you don't see like the general public responding to, movies like this. And I kind of feel like that with Breaking Bad. I mean, there's a lot of shows, but Breaking Bad is one of them where like I don't feel like I'm supposed to relate to any of the characters, and because of that, I don't feel like an emotional attachment to anything. I really see it as just sort of like a series of events which is playing out in front of me, and I'm reacting more than anything to just the overall, like, the overall story, and not like rooting for anyone. Not
right.
Like I'm more interested to see how it plays out than to see anything else. Like I don't feel like, I mean, there's people who I know who are saying like, oh my God, this show is so intense, like I had to stop watching this show because of how intense it was on a week-to-week basis. And I mean, I definitely see what they're talking about, but I never really felt that because I was just so intrigued by what was going on from an unemotional standpoint.
Well,
like,
I think I don't know. I mean, I think that where it gets you and where people, I don't want to say relate to, but when to see the entry point being a father who has enough trouble providing for his family and a baby on the way finds out that he's got a terminal illness. You can say, oh gosh, well, all right, I can understand, making a bad decision because you're desperate sort of thing. But in terms of relation, oddly enough, I think that really, I agree with you. I can't relate to I haven't gone through, something like this, but the character of Jesse is the human one because he's the one that you can feel pity for in a very large sense because he's just a dumb kid who got caught up. And there are so many points during the show where he tries to get away. He tries to get out of what Walt has built.
Yeah.
And Walt keeps pulling him back in, or Gus pulls him back in, or like he's the one that is actually trying to just be done with it. And then in this episode, I think it would have been so easy for somebody to decide to kill Jesse to eliminate the plot line, but to have him be the one living in hell for what Walt did. He's paying he's paying for Walt's sins.
Yeah.
Where he is. And to have the family life that he was trying to establish, that Walt played with and manipulated, to have that be the leverage to keep him in there. He's actually making, under duress, a similar sort of choice. Like Walt makes a bad choice to do this thing for his family, and Jesse is forced to do this thing he no longer wants to do for his family. So there's a very interesting mirroring in this episode that makes it just really that much more impactful.
Yeah.
And then, Walt's blood son, his real son, finds out the truth and wants nothing. I can only imagine you find this out about your parents. It's like, oh, wait, what?
Yeah.
My God. And here's Skylar again. She's the one bearing, the weight of Walt's sins as well.
Yeah, this is where it like all falls apart, starting with, the death of his brother-in-law, and now here his, family's hand is forced in terms of, well, I guess, his wife is forced to tell his son about the situation, and it's like all of this stuff which has been sort of like you've been walking on eggshells for, 5 seasons, and now they all crack, and I think that's really kind of crazy that it all happens, in this one episode, and this is where I think that's why people respond to this episode so well, and it happens in a rather, I guess, unexpected way. I don't know. Maybe it's expected. I don't know. I don't think you can really expect it.
I'll call back to The Shield again, where it had a similar sort of ending in the one sense that this episode, Ozymandias does not go the way you think it's going to go. Mm-hmm. Nothing about this played the way anybody really expected it to happen. And by subverting that, it winds up creating something that is like you can't see any other way for it to have happened. This is one of those rare shows, and specifically this episode, where this is not what anybody was predicting was going to happen. Because, of course, as fans, your favorite show is coming to an end. Everybody's like, oh, I bet this is going to happen. I bet this is going to happen. And nothing has happened like that in this episode up to this point. Yeah. And but at the same time, you think to yourself while you're watching it, yeah, but what else could they have done? My ideas were kind of dumb by comparison,
I don't know if I really had an idea for how this was going to end. I always assumed that he was going to die. I thought he had to die in the last episode. But aside from that, I guess I didn't really have any ideas.
Well, I think when you're watching it live, and it's rare nowadays to watch a show live. Usually we're binge watching.
Yeah.
But in the moment, to have to wait between season breaks, to have to wait over the summer, to have to wait, week to week, that definitely with this show that definitely lent itself to try. You wanted to guess because you hated the end of this hour every week, because it would end and you were like, geez, I gotta wait now. No, and that's so tough to do.
I even felt like that on sort of a micro scale. I've talked about this a lot, but what I've been doing for like the past 2 years now, I guess, is I've picked like the top 7 shows off of Netflix that are on the Writers Guild list, and just to sort of not bore myself, but to fill in all the gaps I need to fill in, I've started and I'll watch like episode 1 of all 7 shows, and then I'll go back and I'll watch episode 2 of all 7 shows, and I've just been doing that. So like with Breaking Bad, my own personal sort of like what I would do, I'd watch an episode and it would end, like this episode ends, and I wouldn't just go right to the next one. What I would do is I'd watch 6 other television shows and then go back. And it was like, oh God, an episode would end, and I'd be like, I have to watch an episode of Friends, an episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show, an episode of The Twilight Zone, before I can get back to Breaking Bad. This is going to kill me. I'm like trying to burn through those as quickly as I possibly can so that I can get back to this show. So I can only imagine what it was like, especially, I imagine it's similar to, my experience with that, I guess, more than anything would have been Battlestar Galactica,
Yeah.
But
this scene here where Skylar, color is very important in Breaking Bad, as I'm sure you picked up on, and people, talked about the color theory, and Gilligan was always, very forward about the color theory with everything. But Skylar is in white. She's dressed like, the bad guy wears a black hat and the good guy wears a white hat, sort of thing, like the Western. And she finally stands up to Walt, and she's wearing white. She's wearing the heroic color, if you will, the in the Western. And I think that, that's definitely not accidental, but here she is, like everything in this. And what's amazing is the first time you're watching this, because they have subverted so many things up to this point, you believe that somebody can die right here.
Yeah.
You don't doubt that somebody can die right here. And you see here again, Walt is completely the monster he always claimed he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
You see the real Walt again coming through, and the family was the artifice.
Yeah. There were numerous moments in the series where, for example, just the first scene, with his brother-in-law, where it's like, is he going to die or is he not going to die? And I'm like fully expecting him to get killed. And yet at the same time, like as I'm watching it, I'm like, he's not dead yet. It's like, it's like, is like, there's like this moment or whatever, where it's like the tension is kind of like to the point of like, I really don't know what's going to happen. It's like Schrodinger's Heisenberg.
Oh my God! This
like
part
that.
right here where he grabs the baby, just as a dad, I just can't even, every choice he makes, he is such a dick.
Yeah, I know. This is like one of the things where it's like, wow, he's willing to.
I can't like. This is one of those things too, where sometimes as a dad or as a husband, you think to yourself, oh, I can sort of be a jerk and everything. And this is like one of those shows where you can sit there, you can watch, and you can be like, okay, all right, well, I'm going to come back down to earth here and not feel so bad about getting, a little testy about the fact that the pizza was eaten and I wasn't home. Okay. Okay, yeah. I know I need to work on that, but at the same time, I didn't steal a baby and jump in a pickup truck and drive off,
Yeah.
And look at Skylar. She's got just what ballsy choices. Seriously, what incredible choices for this episode.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like all the crazy places that this episode goes, and it's not even done yet. There's still other places for it to go.
Right. But... Exactly. We've still got like 8 minutes left, but this is that terrifying moment when you're watching the episode, because you knew that this, they had promised there were going to be 2 episodes afterward, but this is the climax. Mm-hmm. This is the point in the episode, the first time you're watching it, where you realize there isn't enough time to resolve anything. Yeah. Nothing's getting, like 0 is getting resolved in this episode. You're fine with it, but oh God, this scene too. I'm sorry, like this sort of stuff is this is such incredibly heartbreaking moments, because for the 2 reasons. That one, the baby is calling for mama. Walt is realizing what he's doing. He's a bad person, but really and the thing is, you contextualize, like earlier in the series, you're like, oh, well, Walt is having humanity come through, that sort of thing. What Walt's reactions really are contextualized as, from my point of view, in this episode, and it sort of like works backward for the rest of the series. This informs everything that came before. Is Walt's moments like this, his sorrow is about him realizing who he really is.
Yeah.
He's so selfish. He's not sad because a baby wants her mama. He's not sad because he had a knife fight with his wife, who has put up with so many mountains of crap from him, or that his son called the cops on him. He's upset because he can't lie to himself in those moments. Those are the moments he can't lie to himself.
I mean, that could be, but I mean, I think that the character is, definitely, super complex, and there are moments, it's like, okay, we just saw him steal a baby, we just saw him, tell Jesse, that he watched his girlfriend die, and he could have stopped it if he wanted to, all that stuff. But then you've got like this scene where he's, very clearly trying to, basically get Skylar off the hook, right?
Right.
And the way that he does it, it's very smart, and you're kind of like, oh, but at the same time, there's also that thing of like he's trying to right his wrongs,
Yeah, I mean, I guess this does start the arc that carries through in the last 2 episodes where he works to wrap things up.
Mm-hmm.
But I still, I mean, I mean, anybody listening to this commentary has probably watched the whole show by this point.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know, maybe my read then, I do think that the scene with the baby informs how he's been lying to himself the whole time, but maybe, to speak to your point, the baby is the moment where he realizes he has to do what he can to right the ship before time runs out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the baby is the key to him. Maybe almost like a Darth Vader thing. Oh my God, what have I done to my children? I'm a monster, but at least I'm going to make sure that my kids can survive.
And I mean, I think he has moments like that throughout the series. I mean, the scene where he lets, Jessica Jones die is, I mean, you see like the horror on his face, where he's like, I cannot believe that I'm doing this, but it's like one more step in that direction. And then he ends up being okay with it later on,
Well, he has that reaction of, I can't believe I'm watching this. But at the end of that, I invite you to go back and watch it. Like his face goes blank, where he has this after reaction where he's like, well, it happened. Okay.
Yeah. Now that
most normal human beings would carry around guilt for the rest of their lives about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. That since this is a Star Wars podcast, I just want to note, as far as Aaron Paul is concerned, they did, Jason Reitman does those live reads of movies.
Yes.
And where they have like basically they recast, a movie with, actors or whatever. And then they do like a live, like basically reading of the script with like various people playing the roles that were originated by, whoever. So they did one for Empire Strikes Back, and in that, Aaron Paul played Luke. And
I could see
think that's, I mean, obviously the age is not right or whatever, but as far as like an audio thing is concerned, I think that's pretty great casting,
I do. This specific moment right here where he says, you're never going to see Hank again.
Yeah,
I want to say this is an incredible moment, but a whole other thing that I think people, it's easy to blow past. I don't think fans of the show do. It would be easy to blow past. Maybe the show has prepped you for it up to this point. But the fact that they've taken his sister-in-law, who was such an annoyance, such a jerk through the whole thing, and you feel such human emotion for her in that moment. You realize that any of her shortcomings that she ever had, she never deserved this to happen to her. And it's just, it's a heartbreaking moment that just makes you sick to your stomach.
Yeah, the horror on the faces of his family in that scene is crazy. I always think of the scene from Terminator 2 where they rip off the flesh from Terminator's hand. Yeah. And like the horror on everyone's face in that scene, it's like that's like the same thing that's happening here, only verbally, and that's pretty impressive.
I hope that this speaks to some of the emotional weight that we would see in episode 8. Like, I don't want to conjecture. We don't know what's going to happen, but can you imagine Rian Johnson coming in and Kylo Ren having a scene where he realizes what he's done and what he's been?
Yeah.
Like, what an incredible moment that could be. I'm not saying we're going to get it, but I have faith that Rian Johnson is going to deliver us something like that.
Yeah.
Something where we're going to be emotionally wrecked at the end of it.
Yeah. And I mean, you've got to place it in the proper context, of a Star Wars movie and everything.
Sure.
But if he's able to, reach, Empire level, in terms of emotion, I mean, that's going to be, I don't want to get my hopes up or anything, but at the same time, seeing this really makes me think that, there's a shot at some greatness in episode 8. I mean, this to me more than anything proves that Johnson is capable of directing a Star Wars movie. I know that sounds strange.
No, but the thing is, here again, you have an Empire-esque ending. Empire Strikes Back. People walked out of that theater in 1980 thinking, well, I mean, I guess it ended. I mean, I guess there's Empire has an ending. If it had never picked up after that, it's disappointing because you want to know what happens next. But like this, if this show had ended with this episode, if this had been the end, I still would have been satisfied.
Yeah. I guess I would have too. Although they did. I mean, everyone talks about how this is one of the few shows that really does stick the landing in terms of the ending, and I mean, I agree with that. It's pretty solid what comes next. Although it does go to like a really weird place. That's definitely true. Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of the credits, and thank you to everybody for coming along on this commentary with us. We have enjoyed, doing it, rewatching this episode. So thank you to everybody for coming along with us on this commentary. Is there something we missed? Is there some insight that you have to go along with this episode of Breaking Bad? Maybe some insight that could be carried over into what you expect from Rian Johnson for episode 8. If so, reach out to us at thenerdparty.com/contact. Look up Great Shot Kid and go ahead and reach out to us. And you can also reach out to us on Twitter at Join Nerd Party. You can go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/thenerdparty. And Mike, where can people find you out there in the wilderness of the internet?
You can find me on Trek.fm doing Stage 9 with you, where we talk about the people who make Star Trek. And you can also find me on commentarytrackstars.com, where we do audio commentaries for movies and TV shows, as well as other things. I do have a commentary on there for Fly, the episode, the first episode that Johnson directed. And then you can also find me on Twitter at Mumbles3K.
And, of course, you can find me over as Kessel Junkie on the internet. You can find me here on the Nerd Party Network co-hosting Aggressive Negotiations with Matt Rushing, the aforementioned Stage 9 over on Trek.fm, and co-hosting Words with Nerds with my pal Craig. And once again, thank you, everybody, for joining us on this journey. To prepare for our next journey, we are going to start looking at the work of the editors of Star Wars, specifically Episode 4, A New Hope. And we're going to take a look at, first, the work of the editor Richard Chew and his work on Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation.